You guys probably have rookie drafts going fast and furious right now. So today we're going to be breaking down our top 20 or so rankings in rookie draft superflex leagues. And we're going to go kind of tier by tier, where we see the tier breaks, where you can attack some value, and everything that you kind of need to know going into these drafts. So this video probably won't be super in depth. We're going to go more in depth on these individual players in the rankings videos, but this should give you kind of a brief overview of the landscape of the top 20 in superflex leagues, and we'll kind of break that down as we go. So if you enjoy at any point, if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, comment down below any of your thoughts. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, like you kind of mentioned, we are in the midst of rookie draft season. Whether your rookie drafts have already kicked off, whether your rookie drafts kick off this weekend, or I mean, if you're in some leagues that want to wait a couple weeks, a month, I don't know. I know that in general that a lot of people have their rookie drafts widespread, but regardless, we got to get you guys this information. We got to get you guys this tier list so you guys are fully prepared for your rookie drafts.
Yeah, for sure. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. All right, so as I mentioned in the intro, we're not going to go like super in the weeds on the team fits and that kind of stuff. We're kind of just going to talk, generally speaking, how the landscape is playing out, where the value pockets are, where the tier list kind of separates itself. So the first tier is the 101, Bijan Robinson. I've seen some people get crazy and say that Anthony Richardson's the 101. I've seen some people get crazy and say that Bryce Young is the 101. For me, open market value, Bijan Robinson holds the most. In one quarterback leagues, of course, too, he's like a top 3 pick. In Superflex leagues, still a top 10 to 15 pick, and usually the first rookie off the board in most drafts. For me, he is the clear 101, given the profile that we have, the film that he had, the top 8 draft capital to the Atlanta Falcons, the offense that he's going to now, ran the ball at a high level last year with a 5th-round rookie running back and a 33-year-old converted wide receiver. To me, Bijan at 101 is a pretty clear choice.
Yeah, no, I fully agree here. For reference, every one of you watching, we did the one quarterback rookie draft and we did the Superflex rookie mock drafts. These rankings are going to be in the frame of Superflex, but regardless of format, like Corey said, Bijan Robinson is the 101 in Superflex. Bijan is the 101 in one quarterback. Bijan's the 101 in 2 tight end leagues, whatever the case may be. The draft capital, like you kind of said, 8th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. And when we're actually looking at the scenario with him landing in Atlanta, we've seen Arthur Smith and what he's been able to do with these bell cow running backs. Heck, he took a 4th round Tyler Algier last year and got him to rush for 1,000 yards. You plug the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley into the Atlanta Falcons running scheme, into a team that may win more games than people expect given the status of their division. I wouldn't be shocked if Bijan Robinson had a top 3 overall finish in redraft this year. And if he were to have that type of finish as a 21-year-old rookie running back, we could be looking at the highest valued running back we've seen on the market since prime Saquon Barkley, since prime Christian McCaffrey. I don't think it'll reach levels of that lunacy because that was at a time where people were less careful in terms of running back valuations. Regardless, though, his stranglehold across the board as the clear running back 1 for even maybe the next 2 or 3 years is as strong as we've seen in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. We could probably move on to the next tier of players, which is the top 3 quarterbacks. Now, any order that you guys wanted to rank these guys, I would assume most people either have Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson as the quarterback 1. For me, it's Bryce Young. He's the safer prospect. He was better in college. He was, prime SEC producer, Heisman Trophy winner in 2021. He goes to a situation in Carolina where they actually have some decent options around him. They signed Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst, DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, draft Jonathan Mingo in the 2nd round, who we'll get to later on. Had a top 10 offensive line and pass blocking thanks to a top 10 left tackle pick in Ikem Ekwonu last year. So for me, Bryce Young is the safer projection with a high ceiling. Anthony Richardson, I'm sure some people will say might be the quarterback 1, the 102, maybe even the 101. I think you have to bake in the fact that this guy wasn't very good in college. He needs some mechanical work. And also, he probably won't play quite right away. He probably will sit the first 6 to 10 games of his rookie season, maybe a couple games even more than that. So Richardson and Young, to me, is the real conversation at 102, 103. But I wouldn't be shocked if many people took 102 Richardson or 102 Bryce Young.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, both have the insulation of being top 4 overall picks in this draft class. With Bryce Young, like you kind of said, a more, clean prospect coming in. We kind of know what his range of outcome is going to be. Has a higher floor, but still has, that top 6 overall quarterback in Dynasty ceiling. However, with Anthony Richardson, from a production standpoint in fantasy, if he were to hit his ceiling, I mean, I've seen this guy being taken, like we kind of alluded to with the Bijan Robinson and as our clear 101. I've seen some people take Anthony Richardson as the 101 off the board because the bull case for him is that he is by far the most valuable player in this class in 2 years' time. So I understand the ceiling, but like you kind of said, I do feel like we have to bake that into our analysis, but it shouldn't be our whole analysis. We shouldn't just say that this guy's the 101 because he has the highest ceiling, because like you kind of said, his floor is a little bit lower. It could be a Trey Lance type of situation. That is in the range of outcomes. So like you kind of mentioned, I would personally slightly prefer Bryce Young because I feel like the range of outcomes is more stable. But if someone wants to argue Anthony Richardson at the 102, not the 101, because of the ceiling range of outcome of him compared to Bryce Young, I think that's a fair analysis.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud is also in this tier for us right now.
Yep.
He is actually not in this tier for the market. Keep Trade Cut values him actually behind Jahmyr Gibbs at 104. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that if you're picking 104, that the market values Jahmyr Gibbs higher than CJ Stroud. Maybe you can trade down a spot if someone's in need of a running back and, go down and still get the quarterback that you're looking for. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. We've talked about exploiting the market on numerous occasions. We're going to have Danny with the Dynasty 101 video coming out later this week. Basically, the entire video is on exploiting the market. But for me, I think CJ Stroud belongs in this conversation because he was still a second overall pick quarterback. He still goes to a team and a franchise that is going to build around him. They don't really have the assets and the players around him yet, but it could be maybe more of like a Tua Tagovailoa career trajectory where he gets on the field, plays, 6 to 10 games, maybe the whole rookie season, and, shows some flashes, but doesn't actually, produce much in fantasy. But by years 2, they add some pieces, they add some receivers, they add some running backs, add some tight ends, some protection, whatever they need to do. And long-term for rebuilders, if you need a lot of pieces for a rebuilding team, CJ Stroud is definitely the type of fixture that I would want.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like he gets a bad rap because, like you kind of mentioned, he doesn't have that pure, easily identifiable ceiling case that Anthony Richardson does with his legs, or Bryce Young does with his out of structure type of ability that he's bringing to Carolina. But he's just a damn good quarterback prospect. He's got the requisite height. He's got the requisite pocket skills. He lands in a situation in Houston, well, not as great, in my opinion, as Carolina and Indianapolis represent for the other two. It's still a solid nesting spot, especially under the tutelage of Bobby Slowick coming over from San Francisco. So overall, he's going to get devalued by some. But the other thing I wanted to point out is you mentioned the market in terms of rookie drafts slightly prefers Jahmyr Gibbs, and we'll get into that in a second. I haven't seen Jahmyr Gibbs go over CJ Stroud in a single startup I've been in.
Yeah, which is crazy because that in rookie drafts, people are like, oh, Gibbs is the higher ceiling, 12th overall pick. He's a running back. He's insulated. But yeah, we've done a startup so far, and I've seen a couple people post startups on Twitter, and in no situations in quarterback-friendly rooms, quarterback-heavy rooms. And maybe that's what's influencing it. Maybe some people play in leagues where quarterbacks aren't as highly valued, and that's why they're taking Jahmyr Gibbs. So, of course, know what your league market is. But for me, I just can't take a running back long-term over a quarterback and a guy that got second overall draft capital. But we can go right into that next tier, which for us is like the not named Bijan elite skill position players, which is Jahmyr Gibbs and Jackson Smith and Jigba, who both went in the first round of the NFL draft, 12th overall Detroit Lions draft capital for Jahmyr Gibbs, and then 20th overall pick to the Seattle Seahawks for JSN. I would say for most people, this decision point is going to come down to your team needs. Do you have a lot of running backs on your team? Do you have a lot of wide receivers on your team? And the status of your team as well, because you're going to obviously be probably more so in a competitive window taking a running back at 105 or 106 in your rookie draft in Jahmyr Gibbs. But if you're in like a long-term rebuild, let's say you have 101, 102, 104, 106, 107, 108, 109 in this draft, and then 6 ones next year or something like that, you probably are better suited to take a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba in that situation, because while his rookie season outlook isn't great because Metcalf and Lockett are there, Lockett has an out in his contract in 2024. This could be very well a CeeDee Lamb situation like we saw a couple years ago. And CeeDee Lamb, even despite competing for targets with Cooper and with Gallup his rookie season, he was well on his way to being becoming a top 5 dynasty wide receiver going into his second year.
Yeah, I think the CeeDee Lamb comp is very, very good. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb falling to 17th overall in 2020. JSN falling to 20th overall, despite both players being projected at some points as a top 12, top 15 overall pick. They are both absolute studs. And like you kind of mentioned, pick your poison between Jahmyr Gibbs and JSN. I do think roster construction is going to be the decider if you have the 105. Like you said, if you are not ready to compete in 2023, if you don't have the quarterback set quite yet, or maybe you just don't have the overall depth to be able to significantly affect your overall standings in this upcoming season, just take JSN. He's going to hold value, like you kind of said. You know he's going to be a around 3 startup pick this time next year, regardless. Take JSN. In terms of Jahmyr Gibbs, on the flip side, let's say you drafted your startup last year. You 1 year punted. You have, maybe 3 first-round picks this year, including the 105, the 107, and I don't know, the 108, hypothetically. If you have the rest of your roster set and you just need to input your running back, say you punted running backs in your startup draft, Jahmyr Gibbs going 12th overall was the biggest gift we could have possibly gotten from the NFL. What that tells us is that this is a similar tier prospect now entering Dynasty Fantasy Football to what we saw with Christian McCaffrey going 8th overall to the Panthers, for example. Undersized running back. We weren't exactly sure how high they would be valued in the NFL. The NFL comes back and tells us, oh no, we value these elite skill position players very highly. And oddly enough, Jahmyr Gibbs is, aside from Christian McCaffrey, the best receiving running back prospect we have seen in quite a while. Better than Alvin Kamara, better than the other top end receiving prospects we've seen come out. He is the perfect package for what we want from our PPR running back. So in terms of range of outcomes, obviously it's lofty comparing anyone to CMC, but could we see Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, someone like that in the high range? And worst case scenario, he's, a Christian McCaffrey rookie year where he's an RB2, but he's getting 100 plus targets. And next year going forward, we can project to being a top 10 guy. Absolutely. I think Jahmyr Gibbs going 12th overall, like I said, by far the biggest win of our rookie pick cycle from the NFL draft.
Yeah, it's wild. We were talking about how good the rookie draft looked after the first round of the NFL draft. Obviously, day 2 and day 3 kind of decimated those hopes. But Jahmyr Gibbs getting 12th overall draft capital, going to a team that gave DeAndre Swift, who doesn't even seem like they liked at all, basically like 100 target pace type of workload through the air with a quarterback like Jared Goff is great news for him. So the next tier of guys that we have down here is Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, and Zay Flowers. And Zay Flowers might not be in everybody's tier, 4, whatever this is. Most people might say it's just QJ. It's just Jordan Addison. But quickly on Zay Flowers, I think given the offensive situation that we have now changing, it's not the same old Baltimore Ravens. Todd Monken's coming in. They're going to throw the ball more. All their moves, signing their quarterback, drafting Zay Flowers, signing Odell Beckham Jr. point to that. So that's why I think he's in this tier. And for me, he was actually above QJ pre-draft from a talent standpoint. Jordan Addison lands in a spot where he can be a day 1 Z flanker slot opposite Justin Jefferson, who's going to get the number 1 corner, who's going to get all the coverage headed his way. And Jordan Addison can be maybe like a first 3 years of his career Juju Smith-Schuster opposite Antonio Brown. Like that's the impact that Justin Jefferson has on the field. And that's going to be great for Jordan Addison. It's a great offense, top 10 offense last year. Kirk Cousins can absolutely support Jefferson getting 180 targets, TJ Hawkinson getting 100 targets, Jordan Addison, getting 100, 120 targets as a rookie even. And then QJ, he needs development. He's a bit of a raw prospect, but given the landing spot that he landed in and what we saw from him on film, where there was a lot to work with, I feel pretty good knowing that he got 21st or 22nd overall draft capital in the NFL draft going to the Los Angeles Chargers to play with Justin Herbert in the long term, where Mike Williams is almost 29 years old. Keenan Allen is in his 30s and dealt with injuries last year. So all 3 of these guys are pretty rock solid, like mid to late first round picks. And honestly, once they're off the board, all hell breaks loose, as we're going to talk about.
Yeah, 100%. Quickly on QJ, because obviously, him landing in the Chargers was probably, the nuts range of outcome for a player of that skill set. When it comes to that Chargers offense, obviously schematics are going to change a little bit with Kellen Moore coming in. Maybe more spacing, maybe, more stop type of routes concepts, stick type of route concepts added to this team. But this is still an offense with Justin Herbert at the helm since 2020 has thrown the ball over the yard. In his rookie season, Justin Herbert's rookie season, he started 15 games, threw the ball nearly 600 times. As a second-year player, 672 pass attempts. Last year, 699 pass attempts, despite Mike Williams missing time, Keenan Allen missing time. This could be a legitimate Tom Brady in 2020 situation where this team throws the ball 750 times. I know it sounds lofty just even thinking of 750 pass attempts, but that is the type of ceiling from Justin Herbert. That is the type of ceiling from this Chargers offense we can see. And taking a first-round wide receiver just complements that theory.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you guys play in Dynasty best ball leagues too, man. Holy crap. QJ could be really fun for that. So, again, these guys are all rock solid. Pick them in any order. I personally would rank them Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston,
Agreed.
and Zay Flowers. But these next guys, and we're going to try, I want to really try and outline the bull cases and the bear cases for each one of these guys, because in my opinion, you could rank these guys legitimately any which way, and I wouldn't have any, qualms with it. We rank this tier basically the day 2 highlights, the guys that went on day 2, except for, Dalton Kincaid, that are going to make up the late first round, early second round of your rookie drafts. And that's Will Levis, who went, top of the second round to the Tennessee Titans. Devon Achane, who went in the third round to the Miami Dolphins. Zach Charbonnet, of course, terrible landing spot. He'd be way ahead of this if he didn't go to the Seattle Seahawks, but great draft capital, 52nd overall. Michael Mayer, top of the second round to the Las Vegas Raiders. And like I said, Dalton Kincaid went in the first round to the Buffalo Bills. If you wanted to rank Kincaid first, I wouldn't bat an eye. If you wanted to rank Michael Mayer first, nobody would question you. So let's start with Will Levis. Let's talk about Will Levis. He's a quarterback. Obviously, his range of outcomes includes high value insulation because he plays quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, I mean, there are going to be detractors about the profile. He's an older player, a little bit more raw of a quarterback prospect. Obviously, you've mentioned on the tail of the tape that his big time throw to turnover with the play rate and his sack rate were things that concerned you specifically. But he went 33rd overall. He went to the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, they have some work to do on offense, but it sounds to me that they absolutely would have tried to trade up for him in the first round. But at the end of the first round, you were looking at teams like Philadelphia, Dallas, Cincinnati, Buffalo that all wanted to try to add pieces to try to contend because they're, contending teams. So what this tells me right now is that the Titans actually end up trading up for him in the second round, getting him at 33rd overall. You have Treylon Burks already there. You end up adding, we'll get into Tajay Spears in a second later on. You add another skill position player to this backfield, and you add a potential franchise overall tackle with Peter Skoronski in the first round. Yeah, is it a little bit of a risk when it comes to Will Levis that he doesn't pan out because he does not have a really good receiving core outside of Treylon Burks? I mean, we're looking at Nick Westbrook-Akine and Kyle Phillips. Like, it's a mess there. Yeah, absolutely. There is a risk here that he does faceplant, maybe has a Zach Wilson level rookie season. That's in the range of outcomes. However, if he shows the raw ability that he had on tape, if he shows that arm talent that had people salivating, if he shows that movement ability that had people really, really excited about his out of structure play, 10th overall is going to be way too low. There's a range of outcomes this time next year where if we were to redraft this class, Will Levis could be the clear-cut top 5 overall pick redude. I could see him in a scenario where if he has such a good rookie season, he might be preferred to CJ Stroud in some people's minds, given the out of structure ability he could have. So it is a risk. I understand the floor is there, and I'm sure you're going to talk about a little bit of the cons with the situation here. But I do think 10th overall, say you're a contending team, you need an upside quarterback 3 to add. Maybe, you don't have Trey Lance, you don't have Jordan Love, you don't have a guy like that, but you still want an upside quarterback 3 to complement your Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. I think Will Levis would do you fine at the 10th overall pick.
Yeah, and Will Levis, like you said, probably the highest ceiling of any range of outcomes in this area because he plays quarterback. Because if he, like you said, high end, he's like Justin Herbert because nobody liked Justin Herbert coming into his rookie season. Low end, he's Zach Wilson, but even the median range of outcomes is decent. If he has a Kenny Pickett type of rookie season, he'll probably be a 4th, 5th round startup pick this time next year in a class at 110 where there's really nobody that's going to go crazy up in value because these wide receivers weren't great prospects. These running backs didn't get great landing spots, that kind of thing. So yeah, Will Levis definitely interesting there. Also, the 2 running backs, this is going to be a real conversation point. Do you go with the prototype, Zach Charbonnet in the bad landing spot, who his best case scenario, at least early on in his career, is to be like Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb with Kenneth Walker or A.J. Dillon to Aaron Jones in that situation? It's not great, but he's still a great prospect, and this offense is going to be good, and he's going to be one of those, gives you an RB24 finish on the end of the season, but you don't like how you got there kind of thing from a redraft perspective. Or do you go with Devon Achane, who is the outlier of all outliers, 188 pounds, fast as hell, doesn't really make people miss. He's like kind of a one-trick pony, but he can catch the ball as well, and he landed in quite literally the best landing spot he could have possibly gone to outside of the San Francisco 49ers, who weren't looking for a running back. So Achane versus Charbonnet is going to be a popular discussion point for a lot of people in the late first, early second too.
Yeah, it seems like the discussion point to me, because obviously, like you kind of mentioned, Charbonnet, the better prospect, ends up getting the higher draft capital, but lands in a situation with Kenneth Walker. On the flip side, If you were to hand pick a situation to insert Devon Achane into, it would be that Mike McDaniel running scheme. It would be a play caller that can utilize his speed to the maximum capability, which we saw Mike McDaniel do with Raheem Mostert just last year. Devon Achane kind of has that Raheem Mostert effect to him, where maybe he's not the best pure runner, pure between the tackles guy like a Zach Charbonnet can be. But if you get this guy on the edge, he's taking it to the house. If you get this guy involved in the receiving game, he's taking it to the house. And I personally had to debate this so often. Do I take Charbonnet? Do I take Devon Achane? And I do think it really depends on the situation of your team. If you're a contending team and you kind of just need, a glue guy, running back 4 added with some upside if Walker were to miss time, I think Charbonnet's your guy. If you're more so, a middling team, maybe want to try to compete this year, want to swing for the fences on a potential game-changing option, I think Devon Achane is your guy. Both are solid value here at the end of the first round, but it's really, in my opinion, a pick your poison thing. And then we just get right into the tight ends. You prefer Michael Mayer, you prefer Dalton Kincaid. I don't care which one you take. I think both of them are stud players. I would favor slightly Kincaid's situation, 25th overall to the Bills, as opposed to 35th overall to the Raiders. But I don't think enough people, like you're going to get into in a second, are talking about how valuable Michael Mayer being inserted as the clear-cut number 2 target for Jimmy G is in terms of his overall volume he can receive. We had the preference for Mayer over Kincaid going into the pre-draft cycle. He gets maybe an 8.5, 9 out of 10 spot versus the 10 out of 10 that Kincaid got. So I would still personally slightly prefer Mayer, and I'm sure you think the same as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to end up with a lot more of Mayer in rookie drafts because people prefer Kincaid, generally speaking, because he went to Buffalo and he got drafted in the first round. And the fit is there, right? Slot usage, definitely a possibility. We've heard some Bills guys talk about that so far, and that gets you excited, right? Kincaid's a great athlete. He can work in the slot as a big slot. Imagine like Mike Gesicki, if he was good, put in the slot with Josh Allen.
And I'll quickly add to that too. Obviously, this is so hyperbolic, but I'm just going to throw a theory out there. The Bills have had their struggles in the playoffs against the Chiefs because they can't cover a move tight end like Travis Kelce. I understand. Do never compare Kincaid to Kelce, but if they're envisioning a player who has that type of skill set to operate that type of role in their offense because they see how great it's worked out for their biggest rival in the AFC towards making a Super Bowl, I think that takes effect here. They traded up in front of the tight end needy Cowboys to make sure they got Mayer. It was a 2-spot jump. They were not willing to lose out on Kincaid in case Dallas were to pick him at 26. So I am weighing that a little bit. However, like we kind of mentioned, I preferred Mayer pre-draft, and that speculation isn't enough alone to make me flip-flop on my stance.
Yeah, and Mayer, for what it's worth, going to a situation with Josh McDaniels, who obviously used Gronkowski for all those years, Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball to George Kittle for all those years, he's probably going to start week 1 100% of the snaps or close to it. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Mayer is the much easier projection, much better rookie season kind of situation, but maybe Kincaid is better in the long term or something like that. I could see Mayer having like at least Freiermuth plus as a rookie season type of production. And like I said, this is going to be a good offense. Devontae Adams is going to command a lot of the attention away from Michael Mayer, and he can work over the middle. Of course, he's going to help Josh Jacobs out in the run game. And we just want, generally speaking, pieces of good offenses. And I think the Raiders and Michael Mayer are a good fit. So all these guys are pretty solid options. It kind of depends on what you need at the end of the first round. If, like Danny said, if you're a contender, you need a QB3, go after Will Levis. If you're a contender, you need a RB4, and you play in a best ball format, go after Devon Achane. Or maybe you play in a regular managed league and you need some upside in the long term, handcuff with standalone value, take Zach Charbonnet. If you need a tight end, take either one of these guys. But we can move on to the clusterfuck mega tier, mid to late second rounders. There is no consensus here. None. No. If you wanted to take Jonathan Mingo, who's at the end of this tier right now with this next pick, after these guys are off the board from the previous tier at like 203 or 202, whatever it ended up being, I don't blame you. If you wanted to take who we have there, Josh Downs, who was our wide receiver 5 pre-draft and has the cleaner profile and projects as a slot receiver to a quarterback that has accuracy concerns, but probably will favor over the middle easy completions, then you could go with Josh Downs. Literally all these guys have upside cases. Roschon Johnson could become the starting running back in Chicago. Kendre Miller, maybe after a split backfield his rookie season, could be the long-term starter there in New Orleans. Sam Laporta, great landing spot, top 40 draft capital, off the board before Michael Mayer to the Detroit Lions, and he's a move tight end himself. You can keep going with these guys. They all have upside cases. They all have downside risks, but there's really no way to none of them are head and shoulders above the other.
It feels like this year, especially given the second round outlook, if you have a ton of dart throw second round rookie picks in a best ball, you're loving your spot. If you're in a regular redraft, or not redraft, but managed league, a dynasty league, picking between these guys is going to be freaking interesting. And the guys we kind of mentioned, we have a little bit of a mini tier here, but if you view these guys all together, I wouldn't bat an eye personally. Josh Downs, Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, Sam Laporta is kind of how I have it ranked here. I'm not sure if you disagree at all. Would there be anyone you would put in there?
Yeah, I have Jaden Reed actually
ahead
of. Do I have him ahead of any of the guys that you just mentioned?
Laporta?
I don't have him ahead, but I have him ahead of Laporta. So he's like right in there with those two running backs, and then I have Jaden Reed and Sam Laporta because Jaden Reed was my 6th wide receiver heading into the draft, and he's still my 6th wide receiver because he went 50th overall to the Packers. They really only have Christian Watson there. Jordan Love would be an easy completion for him in the slot. They have an open slot position that's a perfect fit for Jaden Reed. I think that the key takeaway here and the most actionable advice that we can give is whoever you liked pre-draft in the day 2 wide receivers area. Did you love Jalen Hyatt? Did you love Cedric Tillman? Did you love Jonathan Mingo? Did you love, Rashee Rice? Like whoever you liked, you could probably just take here because they all got day 2 draft capital. None of them slid to day 3, more or less in the at the wide receiver position. And then at the running back position, I would just favor who did you like plus, who has decent opportunity to earn touches. Because even though I liked Tank Bigsby quite a bit, he's working with Travis Etienne. It's a little bit tougher. So I personally would favor guys like Roshan and Kendre Miller, who, even though they did, like Roshan's case, he went in the 4th round versus the 3rd round. He has an easier path to touches. And I'm a running back between the 3rd and 4th and 5th round picks. There's generally not a huge difference. 2nd round running backs, there's a difference. And 1st round running backs, absolutely. But 3rd, 4th, and 5th round running backs, we've seen, Tyler Algier coming from the 5th round produce at a high level last year. Dameon Pierce coming from the 4th round produce at a high level. Ramondre Stevenson 2 years ago produced at a high level coming from the 4th round. If you are in a backfield with opportunity, you can produce. And I believed that Roshan and, even Chase Brown, who we're going to talk about as an honorable mention in the 5th round of the Bengals, these guys all have the ability to get on the field. And that's why I like them.
Yeah, so we'll quickly go through, a little bit of the pros and cons of each, like very, very briefly. Roshan Johnson, we just touched on Josh Downs. He lands in a situation. Shane Steichen coming in, rookie quarterback, no real target hierarchy after Michael Pittman. He could easily be the wide receiver 2 there if he hits his range of outcomes. Not to mention the prospect profile indicates a guy that can command targets. So we like Downs there. Roshan Johnson, like we kind of mentioned, very similar situation to that of Tyler Algier, lands in a murky backfield situation. You have, Justin Fields already there. You don't have the greatest overall skill positions group as entirely. So if we're looking at it, that was a team that liked to run the ball last year. Roshan Johnson, bigger back between the tackles, really good complement to what Khalil Herbert can bring to that team. Kendre Miller, you mentioned it with the Saints, could be their long-term starter there. Year 1, however, a little bit choppy of a situation with Kamara and Jamal Williams, who they signed. And then with Sam Laporta, we don't view him as a similar prospect to that of Kincaid and Mayer, but he actually went before Mayer in the draft, lands on Detroit. We've already talked about how strong this offense could potentially project to be when we talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. Sam Laporta, I don't want to call him like, I mentioned how Kincaid's like a poor man's Kelsey. Laporta's like a poor man's Kincaid in the sense that you kind of get the ball in his hands. He has that yak ability, can honestly be the number 2 target in that offense, or maybe number 3 after Gibbs and Amon St. Brown as soon as year 1. So I like those guys, and I'll let you touch on some of the receivers and some of the lower backs here.
Yeah, Marvin Mims. I mean, Sutton is probably not long for that situation. He kind of regressed last year. Judy got his 5th-year option picked up, but Mims could develop into the number 2 receiver there. Jalen Hyatt, I mean, there's nobody downfield that scares you on the Giants right now. If Daniel Jones takes another step forward, then Saquon commands all the attention. Darren Waller and some of the other guys that they have can work over the middle. Jalen Hyatt might be, again, another best ball guy. If you play in Dynasty best ball leagues, would be really good for that. And then Jaden Reed, like I said, kind of Randall Cobb replacement there for the Green Bay Packers, work over the middle for Jordan Love. Tajay Spears, the injuries concern me, which is why I have him a little bit further down than where he probably should be with like 3rd round draft capital in a situation where Derrick Henry's getting older. But I don't believe that if Derrick Henry was traded today, that Tajay Spears would be the only running back in that backfield. They would probably sign Kareem Hunt or, whatever.
Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette. Like they're not going to give Tajay Spears a huge workload. I kind of envision him as like a poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs, except like not as talented. And then same goes for Tank Bigsby. He's probably going to be an early down banger, kind of like what James Robinson was for the Jags before he got traded last year. And then Jonathan Mingo's kind of one that we probably should touch on because I would imagine a lot of people would have him a lot higher than this. Jonathan Mingo had a bad prospect profile. And at wide receiver, you guys are going to see the video that I do probably early next week called Wide Receivers to Target and Avoid. I did this video last year. And basically what the takeaways were from that video is that like 93% of all of the top 20 or 15 point per game seasons at wide receiver came from wide receivers who produced in college. And Jonathan Mingo did not. So the fact that he has never really produced in college, I don't really care that he went 39th overall to the Panthers. It's a good landing spot. And if he develops, he can be good. But his likelihood of developing, giving his prospect profile, is not great. And for what it's worth, too, running fast and being big was not as important as producing in college, which is why I favor Josh Downs, who's small and not as athletic, because he produced in college versus Jonathan Mingo.
Yep. And now we can quickly get into the honorable mentions. We got a guy that we're really high on. We got a guy that the market is really high on. We got another guy that we feel like if we didn't mention, you guys might come for our head. So the honorable mentions we have here, Chase Brown, a favorite of ours coming into the pre-draft cycle, I believe was both of our RB5s, ends up landing in the 5th round. Not ideal. We wanted to see this guy go on day 2, but a potential situation to be at least the handcuff to Joe Mixon year 1 going round 5 to the Bengals, and potentially, given the legal situation, being the long-term starter there if he proves himself to be worthy of that spot. Rashee Rice, people are going to mention 2nd round capital, lands with the Chiefs. You check out Matt Harmon's reception perception. This guy may have been the worst separator I have ever seen in my life. I get that people might argue, oh, what is actually the translation between his reception perception versus what he could actually materialize being? And my simple response is, if you can't create separation, how do you expect to come down with a lot of volume?
Yeah, now look at the company he's in and look at how Matt Harmon graded the other players in the previous couple draft classes, because his highest grades the past couple years are Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, all the guys that have been hits, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. All these guys did unreal in reception perception. Rashee Rice is buried down there with Raheem Jarrett and Amari Rodgers and terrible names that never became anything in fantasy. I don't care that he went to the Kansas City Chiefs. I really don't. He's a 2nd round pick and he went to the Chiefs. It's the only reason that somebody would probably take him 205 in a rookie draft. At wide receiver, your ability to command targets and get volume. I actually think this might be good news for Sky Moore, low-key.
Oh, I was just going to say, right now, gun to your head, you had to make a choice between which Dynasty asset you want. Are you taking Sky Moore or are you taking Rashee Rice?
I don't love Sky Moore in Dynasty, but I would rather have Sky Moore.
I would as well. I mean, it's a similar situation. 52nd overall last year for Moore, 55th overall for Rashee Rice. It's just funny to me how people are like, oh, you got to respect the draft capital of Rashee Rice when we literally saw a better prospect go to them in the 2nd round last year and not have a useful rookie season. So that's funny, though. We mentioned it. Quickly wanted to say that. Also, I think aren't they literally the same age right now?
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't even be surprised if Rashee Rice was a little bit older than Sky, because he was an early declare. Hendon Hooker was the other guy that Danny was referring to as well. I don't think he's going to be a long-term starter. I know he got drafted in the 3rd round of the Lions, and Jared Goff's got a little bit of a contract situation in the next couple of years, but I envision Jared Goff probably having another productive season because he has great weapons around him, great protection. They add Jahmyr Gibbs, they add Sam Laporta, like Jameson Williams eventually will come off of suspension. So for me, I think that Jared Goff probably has another Geno Smith or better type of season this year and then gets extended. And Hendon Hooker never really becomes anything more than Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater, like I comped him to in the pre-draft process. So he's there, but I probably wouldn't spend more than like a mid-3rd on him, in my opinion.
Yep, no, fully agree with you on Hendon Hooker. Pretty rocky prospect file, goes in the 3rd round, and is still in my opinion, the inferior quarterback to Jared Goff. It's pretty weird to me how you kind of have this bridge quarterback with Detroit with Jared Goff. If you have that type of quarterback, wouldn't you be more incentivized to swing for the fences? Like, I don't understand taking another, steady quarterback 1-2 fringe type, which is what Hendon Hooker represents.
Yeah, if they were going to swing on a quarterback, it should have been Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, not, or if it was later in the draft, Dorian Thompson-Robinson or something like that. So I don't really agree with the Hendon Hooker pick. I think they probably wasted one there. They should have went defense, O-line, whatever, instead of that. So that is the end of the video. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of this. This was basically us kind of going rapid fire on our top 20 or so rankings in tier list format. Hopefully this was helpful. We are going to go probably a little bit more in depth individually on each of the players, on each of their outlooks in the rankings videos in the coming days. Tomorrow we'll talk about running backs. The coming days we'll talk about quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, all that good stuff. Earlier today, I dropped a video on the 5 biggest mistakes that most dynasty players will make, and mistakes that ideally you want your league mates to make instead of you. So definitely go check that video out if you haven't already done so. And also make sure to follow us over on Twitter. Check out flockfantasy.com. Promo code /FSE for all of our rookie rankings, all of our dynasty rankings, bonus articles, bonus videos, all that stuff available there. And also make sure BBM4 is now live on Underdog Fantasy. And they also have a special boosted pick'em line tonight. If you guys are basketball fans for RJ Barrett, you guys can see that on the screen. And of course, BBM4, I will be doing a bunch of those next weekend or this weekend coming up on live streams. And of course, we're going to be talking BBM because we are trying to win that $15 million in total prizes, $3 million to first place. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Promo code FSE gets you 100% back up to $100. That's, you deposit 100, you get 4 free Best Ball Mania 4 entries for using our promo code. So with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.